but we are going to have a very punchy session right now on data. You all know now that I educate board of directors, current and future, to be stewards of the future. So now we again have to see if these two fantastic leaders are going to get a book. But with, we're going to have this, as I said, punchy discussions. The critical, important role that data play. We all know we're talking about data, but we need to measure it as well. So, Christina,
yes.
VP, Head of Strategy and Sustainability and AI Apps.
Yes.
And Edan, Dionne, and you are the VP, Environmental, Energy and Chemical Management. Mothers?
Yes.
Okay, good. Christina, why don't you take us away?
Yes, thanks, Helle. I just want to make sure this works. Excellent. All right, hi everyone. So everyone's been talking about how we need to actually action on all these goals, right? Sustainability, it's great to have the talk, now let's walk the walk. At the end of the day, our belief is we need to figure out how to manage the data in order to decide how to action and operationalize sustainability goals. Look, I think there's a recent Forrester report that says 60 to 70% of data right now is not being actioned on, right? There's just a plethora of data that's being not just created, but consumed in different ways. There's a lot of confusion as to what to do and where to source all the data. And at the end of the day, this is not just a sustainability problem, it's a business problem. What do we do and how do we make sure that we have the right data that we can do something with? And as we talk about our sustainability goals, how do we make sure that we are able to leverage that data and actually action upon it so that we can make sense of it, make sense of the decisions that we need to make on a day-to-day basis, and really be intelligent about the way that we go about achieving our sustainability imperatives. So what we had drawn up, if you want to say, is a sustainability technology blueprint, right? This is the way that we are thinking from a point of view as to how we can think about that data and how, more importantly, we can operationalize sustainability imperatives. What you see behind me is that blueprint. So at the very top, we talk about all the different sustainability imperatives and goals that need to be articulated from the board, from the C-suite, from the directors that are in charge of sustainability imperatives. And while that is great, and that's the direction, the strategy that needs to be dictated, from there, it's really about what do we do with that, and how do we make sure that we make sense of that. The layer beneath that is that data layer. So that layer is essentially around how do you manage, how do you source, how do you pull the data from across the different business areas, and then assess it, do analytics against it, and then action based on the decisions that you can make from what the data is telling you across that business. And that goes across the entire business. Below that is the core of the business, right? These kind of like black pillars you see here is really the core of the business. And a lot of times, if you think about the more common sustainability goals that have been mentioned already today, net zero, carbon commitments, decarbonization of supply chain transparency and traceability, all of these different examples of goals are ones that cannot be fulfilled without understanding data and pulling data, and kind of, if you think about kind of a data process flow between all the different business units and this data mechanism, hopefully at the top around the entire business. So the way that we think about the data and process flow here is we have the core of the business, these black pillars. We're able to pull from some of the more common areas where some of the sustainability data will be coming from. Your assets, your physical assets, your buildings, your infrastructure, your IT infrastructure of data centers, for example, your supply chain, right? And these are kind of the more common areas, not to say that there aren't others where a lot of the data will be coming from, but that's in essence where a core of that will be coming from, and then it could be managed, reported against, and analyzed in order to make some sense of that. We put environmental intelligence kind of wrapping around the entire business here, because the way we think about it is the impact that your business has on the environment, as well as the impact that the climate or the environment has on your business. And that's also imperative to think about, because it's not just about what you are doing on a day-to-day basis with your infrastructure, et cetera. It's also how are things in the macro environment also affecting your business, and how do you think about that and proactively address it, or think about it from a predictive response perspective. And then it's all underlined and underpinned by some sort of technology, right? We believe in the hybrid cloud technology. And so how do we make sure that we're enabling that technology to be able to support the data and process flows that go around and around in this blueprint? So what we thought, in addition to sharing this POV with you today, in terms of how we are thinking about and working with customers on operationalizing technology for sustainability purposes, is also sharing with you a little bit about IBM's story. We are on a journey, just as the rest of you all are, and have had our struggles and our challenges just as much as everyone else is. And so we have Edan here, who is from our Chief Sustainability Officer group, who can speak to the IBM story and how we are leveraging the data, and also how we're having challenges, quite frankly, with some of that data, as we are also trying to achieve our sustainability imperatives. So I'll hand it over to Edan.
Taking your own medicine.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, so I am one of the practitioners. I'm sure there are many in the room. So IBM has really used data to manage environmental affairs, which includes environment and energy and chemical in the company. But I would say I'll cite two examples. One is the pure act of data acquisition. That is one area that is quite dynamic in my view. You know, we've been using data on spreadsheets going back. I've been with IBM almost 40 years, so I have experienced this journey. And as a company, the dynamic aspect comes in a different variety, whether it's your business change or different kinds of data being sought after. So today, we're very different than 40 years ago. We have a lot of lease locations, for instance. So just use energy data that I need to manage our business. You know, I have more than 300 locations that I need to have data about. And I source the data from over 700 entities, whether it's utilities or landlords. And often the data don't come from direct, the direct entity, the entity that directly owns the lease through an intermediary such as landlords. So it's very dynamic, and we need to grow, our IT system need to grow to support our needs. How do we interfacing a data acquisition software with a data management software, right? So we're going through the journey ourselves internally. And then acquisition also, you have language barriers. In North America and Europe, data is easier to get at, but in Asia, it's very different. So again, I want to emphasize the need to continually grow with IT capability. And the second example I would say is I've always liked to operationalize data to help us make better decisions and quicker. And one of the areas we are focusing on is on refrigerant management. For a company like IBM, refrigerant isn't a big deal. We just use that to to cool our buildings. But there's so many aspects in refrigerant management. There is obviously leakage, there's maintenance of assets, there's compliance for certain companies, right? Refrigerant, if they use certain quantities, they have to comply with certain laws, such as for stocks requirements. So there's compliance aspect. And I think I like that example because it brings together multiple entities in a company. Okay, the organization that maintains the chillers, the organization that invests deciding what chillers to buy, and the organization that actually authorizes what kind of refrigerant to use. And data is important to enable us to say, how do we have an IT system that could bring together 3 silos of data to help professionals in different areas? The ones that's in charge of operations, the ones that's in charge of investment, and the one that's in charge of compliance, coming together to make those decisions. So when you buy the next chiller, you think about complete cost of ownership, right? From initial capital investment to environmental data. So that's one thing and it's an example of what we are doing right now actively to enhance our performance, to get smarter.
I will add one thing, Helle, before I hand it back over to you, which is, as part of that, as part of what Edan had just explained, we were using a software to help to manage and source from and do analytics around the data sources that she's talking about, the 700 plus different data sources. We actually acquired that company, and we just closed that acquisition a few months ago. It's a company called Invisi. It's based out of Australia. It is all about ESG reporting and data management and insights, and it's in order to help enable exactly this, because we really firmly believe that in order to actually operationalize any sustainability imperative, that middle layer that I was sharing around data management, reporting, and insights, that is the critical piece in order to pull it all together. And so that acquisition has helped us internally as well as externally with different customers to be able to support that mission. So I just wanted to add that as well.
And Celine, if I could just, one more quick thing. It's interesting I mentioned about the journey, right? Continually evolving and growing. And we moved to Invisi actually before the acquisition because that we recognize that's a tool that we need to move to from our previous generation tools. And again, as a company that have always recognized the power of data, have used it, we're not afraid of it, we recognize this journey really is never ending.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Can I say something
Of
now?
course.
Yes, of course, back to you now.
So, and I think, I mean, working with so many leaders, you need to have data that you can trust in order to make informed decisions. Right. But also as a former auditor, I think the auditors would probably appreciate to actually have data that we also can trust, and we have the right track of those
also
data.
a single source of that data.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. Not just coming from a hundred different sources.
I don't even have anybody down there saying I need to stop now, but I know I need to stop now. Sorry, everyone. I know that you're both in the app and around, and I know that there probably will be other IBMers around that can answer any questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Or reach out on the app. With that, what do you think? Should we give them a book? Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Only if it's autographed. Okay. Is it autographed?
It can be.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, everyone.